Now, because we actually have a lot of people at home, we're actually going to Macgyver this prac, which means we're going to change it so that everyone can do it, whether you're at home or at school. There are a few safety issues that you need to be aware of, though, and I'm going to make you record this in the investigation document as you that you're going to be filling out as you do this prac. Number one, you must have a responsible adult present just in case there's an accident, because you're going to be working with hot liquids. And so you must have someone else present, a responsible adult, to supervise. And if you accidentally did spill something, actually be there to help and assist you in case you got burnt. Okay, so you must be very careful because you've got hot liquids here. You should technically have safety glasses on, although you're just going to be working with salt water in this case. But if you do have safety glasses at home, I would suggest you put them on just to keep your eyes protected. We are only going to be working with salt water. So the worst thing that would happen is you got splashed in the eye with a hot liquid, but it's going to be no more dangerous than anyone who's actually just boiling water on a stove. However, again, you have to be safe, so please be cautious of that. I just spelled googles instead of goggles. Let's change that. There we go. So this is how we're going to Macgyver growing crystals experiment. Okay, we call this the investigating crystals prac because essentially what we're doing is we're going to be making a concentrated salt solution. A lot of people have done this in primary school. And we're going to be growing crystals, but under two different conditions. We're going to be growing crystals that cool fast. Okay, we're going to be looking at how they grow when they're getting cooled fast and when they're getting cooled slowly. And essentially the way we're going to do that is by putting one in the fridge and one on your kitchen windowsill or something like that. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's what we'd call our independent variable, the thing that we are changing this prac. Okay, the conditions or the speed at which they are cooling. Okay, and now this is how we're going to do it. So you're going to get out a saucepan on your stove, or we'll do the equivalent in the classroom. You're going to get some boiling water. Easier if you just boil it in the jug, honestly. But you need to put that boiling water into the saucepan or something that can hold hot water. Okay. Now I would suggest you start with about a cup, but the actual amount that you have depends on how much salt you have available. And that's the kicker here, how much salt. If you don't have cooking salt, it must be cooking salt. Iodinized salt doesn't grow crystals well. Okay, so it must be cooking salt. If you don't have cooking salt, you could do this with sugar instead. However, the ratios will be different, so I'll let you know. And you won't be able to add to the class data, but at least you'll get some crystals out of it. So first of all, you put a cup of water in that saucepan or a container that can hold really, really hot liquids. And into that saucepan, you're going to then add the cooking salt or sugar if you don't have salt. Okay? Now, if it's cooking salt, you actually have to add a 2-to-1 ratio. That's 2 cups, about 2 cups of salt for every cup of water. So that's why I said be really careful when you put in the water, because how much water you put in really depends on how much salt you can actually steal off your mum and dad or whoever's kitchen you're cooking in. Okay, so make sure you check that. But you need a 2-to-1 ratio roughly. You might need a little more than that. I'm not sure. It depends on the salt and the temperature of the water, but that's roughly the ratio. If it's sugar, it's actually a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, so for every cup of water, you have to have 3 cups of sugar, or for every tablespoon of water, 3 tablespoons of sugar. So you can figure that out, but essentially you are making a saturated solution, which means you stir in that salt or that sugar into that hot liquid until no more can dissolve, and you can actually see little particles in there even after like 5 minutes or so of stirring. They won't dissolve because it's absolutely saturated. That's what you need to get to. Now, once you get to that, you are going to be pouring off that liquid. Okay, now if you remember this from your grade 7 lessons, you are going to be decanting. I'll just bring my picture back here. You're going to be decanting that liquid So decant means to pour off the liquid and leave the solid stuff at the bottom. Okay, so you're going to be decanting or pouring off the liquid into some containers. Now get these containers ready before you getting ready to decant, but you need 2 anyway. So you're going to decant this liquid evenly into 2 different containers. Now you've got a choice. If you've got just your cheap Chinese takeaway containers, you can use them. You just have to have one is labelled fast cooling, so it goes in the fridge, and one is labelled slow cooling, so it goes in on the windowsill. You just have to decant some of that liquid, equal amounts, into the bottom of each of those containers. Don't have it too full. If it's really full, number one, you're going to spill it when you try and move it. And number two, the fuller it is, the longer it's going to take to form crystals. Okay, so we don't want it too full, maybe a centimetre in the bottom. Okay, so decant that liquid into those containers. And if you manage to have huge amounts of salt or sugar in your household, you can also do an extra part to this prac. You can pour some of that liquid into these containers, whatever leftover you've got. Equal amounts again, and you can actually grow some lovely little shapes in those containers. Now, how you do this is by, well, you would have seen this in primary school, just hanging either a piece of string down in there, so you put a pen across the top and you dangle a little piece of string in there. But there's actually a nicer way that you can do this. I'm hoping I've got my picture here. Yes, down the bottom here. You can actually get like a piece of pipe cleaner or something rough and shape it into any shape you like and hang that in the container. So if you do that and hang it in the container, it could be a star, it could be whatever. It could be like with me, a shape in the letter of your first name. Okay, so you just hang that in the container and it will actually grow crystals as well. And again, put them in the fast and the slow situations, one in the back of the fridge and one on the windowsill, and watch them grow over the next few days, and you'll see a definite difference in the size of the crystals that you get on either one of those situations. We're going to be then taking this information, I've actually been collecting information on this prac for a few years, so we've got information that's been collected over years and years with this prac already that we're going to jump straight into and do some reporting on. But meanwhile, you're going to watch your own crystals grow and see this phenomena for yourselves. Okay, so before we go, once you've got to this stage, just make sure that you take one of these guys and put them into the fridge to cool down really quickly. Put one of them on the windowsill to cool down very slowly in a nice warm position. You can cover them up a little bit to stop evaporation. That's good, because if it evaporates, it's going to form crystals really fast anyway. And you just let them grow on the windowsill for a few days. And I would like each of you who does this to please send us in photos of this into our I'm going to put a place up on Gateway where you can actually submit photos of how your prac went to share with the class. Okay, so that's essentially the investigating crystals prac. Make a saturated solution, pour it into 2 containers, put one container in the fridge, put one container on the windowsill. One thing I will point out for each of you is this: when you decant out of your saucepan here, you've got that leftover crystals down the bottom here. Please make sure you don't drop any of them in, because if you do, they'll actually speed up the process of crystal growing if you drop any crystals into those containers. So just make sure they're left behind before you put the containers away. Okay, the next video will be on how you're actually going to be doing this prac with in your investigation planner.